Good morning. Hey, before we get started, let's talk real quickly about how we are already coming together and we are celebrating different things, doing different things within our church community. Some of those things are we have our men's breakfast that's coming up the Saturday before Father's Day, and that will be held at Whataburger. And ladies, if you are up and awake and you'd like to crash that party, let me know. We'll go through the drive-through. We can go through it many times. We can order to go. We can do whatever you want to do. We can crash that party. But we do have a ladies' coffee on the 29th of June, and boys are absolutely not invited. Okay, so let's just be very clear. That's the way it works. And then we've got camp coming up. We've got youth camp really soon, and then we've got kids camp in July. And so if you are looking for ways to be a part of what God's doing at Anchor Church, there are opportunities for you to get involved and be with people, meet people, but there's also opportunities for you to give towards a student going to camp that maybe is not able to do so on their own. So please, if you're interested in that, reach out to either Pastor Stansel, myself, Pastor Troy, or Pastor Chico, and we'll make sure that a child can go to camp. Amen? We will not allow any child to not have the opportunity based on financial things. We're about to start a new series, Come Together. And this series is all about what kind of impact can we make within our community? What is the purpose of coming together? And what is community? And why do we need it? Why is it important? So I'm here to tell you this morning from my chair here because my back is killing me, so y'all bear with me, okay? Community matters. Amen? Community matters. What is community? Community is defined as a group of people with a common characteristic or interest living together within a larger society. Another definition of community says this: community, in its most basic definition, can be defined as individuals who share a common interest, background, or purpose that gives them a sense of cohesion. The idea of community means a whole lot to me, and here's why. Growing up, I was a pastor's kid, okay? And very rarely did you find a pastor who would be in one location for a really long time. It just didn't happen. I do know people that pastored the same church. Stansel's grandfather pastored the same church for almost 50 years. That's incredible. But it just wasn't the norm. And so while I was younger, my parents were youth pastors and music pastors and things like that. And so we traveled, we moved, we lived in a whole lot of different communities. And so it wasn't one of those things that for me, for my family, that I ever had that consistent community. My consistent community was my family, and I'm incredibly thankful for them. But there's something special about planting roots and having a community that you're a part of, that you get to do life with people, that you get to see grow. And so when Stansel and I met, number one, he said, I think that God's calling me into ministry. And I said, that's really great for you, but that's not for me because my idea and my dream was that I was going to marry someone that was going to have a consistent job in a consistent location, and we weren't going to be moving everywhere. I didn't want that life. My parents have been blessed to have remained in the same area for the last 17 years, 16 years, and so I'm thankful for that, and I know that means a lot to them. But for us, it wasn't an option. So when we got married, we began our journey in ministry because, yes, I said yes. Surprise, surprise. And we started out in a little town north of Houston. Then we moved south of Houston, and I thought, here we go. This is going to be our lives. And then God opened a door for us to move to Deer Park. Can you hand me my water? Thank you, babe. When we moved to Deer Park 17 years ago, I remember feeling at home. I wasn't from here. if you know anything about Deer Park, those that are born are raised here, and very rarely do they leave. But if they leave, they almost always come back, and they run this place, okay? I'll introduce you to some. They run this place. And for whatever reason, I told Stancil, this feels like home. But growing up the way that I did, you just don't get too attached. You don't make those connections like maybe you'd want to. You don't plant the roots like maybe others do or others will. And so we started out as youth pastors, and God allowed us to stay here. And God allowed us to plant roots. Little did we know that we would still be here 17 years later. We had Braylon, our oldest, and I remember holding him and saying, God, I'll go wherever you call me to go, and I'll do whatever you ask me to do. But if you would you allow this to be home? Would you allow us the opportunity to raise our kids in one area, in one location? Would you give us that gift? And we're here. We've been here for 17 years and would not want to be in any other community. I'm thankful that God heard my prayer and that he saw fit that this would be our home and our place, that we would be able to raise our kids. As we were talking about this sermon series called Come Together, it had me extremely reminiscent, okay? And it took me back to the beginning of Anchor Church. Listen, I realize that's not that long ago, okay? But for us that have been in it, it feels like a lifetime ago at this point. And so it took me back to the beginning. And we were dreaming, and we were planning, and we were creating anchor charts like we do at school. We had anchor charts all over our living room at one point. And Stancil and I, we spent hours and days praying and asking God for direction. And we just, if you were there, you remember, we were so excited. We were so excited. It was boiling up, bubbling out of us. We were so excited to be here in Deer Park, to plant Anchor Church, and to become your pastors. And some of you were here with us. Some of you sat in our living room. Some of you sat at a kitchen table with us the very first time we spoke the words out loud, that we think this is what God's calling us to do. Some of you, we just grabbed a hold of you and we didn't let go and just said, okay, it's time, we're going. And others of you God gifted to us, and we just wouldn't want to do life without you at this point. This community means so much. I want to show you a little clip from the beginning. I want you to see what it was like for Stancil and for myself. This is before we ever started meeting.
Hey, Anchor Church. Hey, everyone. Excited to jump on here with you. I'm Stancil Williams.
Jordin Williams.
And we are the lead pastors of Anchor Church. And we're excited to share with you some of the process that God has called us to as we step out in faith and plant Anchor Church here in Deer Park.
Yeah, just to give you guys a little bit of an update, today is the last day of July. Tomorrow marks the first day of August. We all know that it is hot. Hot here in Houston, here in Deer Park. But we want to tell you about all of the amazing things that are coming up for Anchor Church. And Santa, tell them just a few things we've been working on over the last few months since we announced that Anchor Church is coming.
Yeah, so we've been working on some things. We've been filing paperwork with Assemblies of God and with the South Texas District to make our church official and get all the paperwork done so that we have a covering of our leadership over us as well. And then one of the things we're doing tomorrow is we're helping set up the bank tomorrow for Anchor Church so that we can start the process of raising the funds for our launch fund so that we can have an amazing start to an amazing church. So that's some of the stuff that we've got going on. And even the cool part for you techie people.
Yeah, so we have connected with a group that has been recommended to us. And we should have, probably within the next few weeks, a running website that will be amazing, and as well as an app. And so Anchor Church will have its very own app, and we're pretty excited about that. On that app, we'll have all of our information, upcoming events, ways to give. You can set up tithe monthly, weekly, however that works best for you. There's just going to be a lot of really cool aspects to that. So we're really excited about that. What else do we have going on?
Well, in the next few days even, we will be having our logo, which we've handed off to one of our marketing firms, one of my friends who's a former DYD, who's been working on that for us. So that should be ready in the next coming weeks. And then, even more so, in the next, starting probably around in October, we're going to start interest groups for Anchor Church. For those that are interested in serving or being a part of Anchor Church, or maybe just wanting to know, hey, what is Anchor Church all about? And so we'll start coming together and having those meetings in person together and meeting. So those are some exciting things that we can get the ball rolling on these things. So super excited.
Yeah, you guys, we cannot wait for Anchor Church to launch. We're ready, ready or not, right? But we're doing everything that we can to get everything prepared for Anchor Church and to make it the best experience possible for you. We're excited to be your pastors. We're excited to minister to the city of Deer Park. And hopefully, over the next couple of months, you have the ability to get connected with us when we have the app, when we have the website. Follow us on social media, Instagram and Facebook right now. And just stay in the loop of what we have going on. We're going to start having more and more team lead meetings in our home. If you're interested in being a part of our lead team, right now we have almost 20 with kids. But we
count the kids.
We count, and we always will, right?
Your kids matter. Your kids,
Your
they
kids
count.
matter. If you're interested in being a part of our lead team, please reach out to us because we want you to be a part of what God's doing with Anchor Church. But in October, look for those interest group meetings, and we are hoping to launch as really it's just a matter of let's raise our funds, but we're hoping to launch by
End of January. It's kind of like we're looking to actually launch Anchor Church, and then have an official grand opening launch sometime in September as 2023 school year begins to start up. So, but yeah, we're looking to come together and start this church in January. So excited.
We're really excited. We've said that a lot. It's like our theme word right now is excited. So hopefully you can get excited with us. Join us in this journey. We want you to be a part of it with us. We love you. We're excited to pastor you and Anchor Church.
You can tell from the video that we were excited. And that excitement has not left us. What has left us is that tan that I had and Stansel's hair. Okay, so it's been a long year and a half. But God has been so faithful, and he's been so good. And just to see the growth, not just numerically, but the growth within ourselves as people, as Christians, the growth within the people within the church, the discipleship that's taken place, and that life-on-life experience that we've had, it means a world to us. And shortly after this video, we did begin meeting in our home, and so we've got some pictures of that as well. We've got, yes, that was around Halloween. We did some pumpkin carving. We started, I'm trying to remember, shortly after this, we started having services in our home. And so that was exciting. We had, we used our TV as, our projector, and we had worship together. We had the word. We had lots of food. We got to bring the food back. That's going to make the difference. And so then God blessed us, and I'll tell you, while I love having people in my home, it did get to a point where we didn't have room for kids, and we have a lot of kids between all of us. And so we said, God, we need you to open a door. And Stancil and I, when I tell you that we knocked on so many doors, we picked up the phone and called so many places and so many locations, and had spoken to us over and over and over again, and it was very disheartening. So as much as we, there we are having church in our house, as much as we are looking forward to our own building, I have to tell you this place that we are in right now was an absolute gift for both Stancil and myself. When we got a yes, finally, I cried. I could cry now, I don't know why, but I literally cried sitting in the truck in my parents' driveway, and I said, Stancil, they said yes. They said we could have the building, and I couldn't believe it. We finally got our yes, and that's when God started to open up even more doors and forming relationships within the city and with leaders. The journey matters. But what matters more than that is the community that has come along, that has created and began and will continue to be Anchor Church. While the author of Hebrews, we're going to read in just a moment a very famous scripture. While the author of Hebrews is still debated on by theologians, we do know that it was written to the converted Jews. Okay, these are people that were speaking the Hebrew language. And in Hebrews, similarly to letters written by Paul, like Ephesians and Romans and things, and many believe that Paul wrote Hebrews, there are instructions given to the church and to these Christ followers, or as Stancil has preached before, the people belonging to the way, right? One of those instructions is found in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25. I want to read it to you. This is from the NLT version. It says, "And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near." I'm going to read it one more time, and I want you to really get this in your spirit. Let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. We get to come together and we get to do this thing called church. And the truth is, we all belong to many different communities. Some of us, it's school, or if you're a student, it's school. If you're a teacher, it's school. It's your workplace. That's a community. It's people that you see daily, that you have built relationships with, that you have grown to do life with these people. Whether you've worked there a year or you've worked there 20 years, they become your community. Others are extracurricular activities or sports. And if you've spent any time with our family whatsoever, you know that our schedule is very much dictated by the sports that our children play. We've been involved in football, we've been involved in tennis, but we have been involved in the baseball community here in LaPorte and in Deer Park for 13 years. When Braylon turned 3, Stancil said he has to play baseball, right? He did. And so we put him in T-ball, and I would love to tell you today that he just crushed it. But the poor baby, not so much. He picked flowers like nobody could. And he would pick up the dirt and throw it in the air and let it fall better than any other 3-year-old out there. I promise you that. He was the best outfielder you could ever have, and he did his job well. The job that he created for himself, okay? Yes. And so baseball became a huge part of our family very quickly. Some of you have kids that are involved in sports, and you understand that it is extremely time-consuming. You spend hours upon hours, and that's just in one day, one tournament, with these people. So these people become like family. These people are people that you sweat with in the middle of the summer while you're playing All-Stars. These are people that you cry with when things don't go the way that they think that they should go. These are people that you learn to love, and they become your family. This baseball community has seen Stancil and myself, the Williams family, grow. When we had Landon, and then he was indoctrinated into this community. They've seen us hurt. They've seen us grieve. They've seen us celebrate. They've seen us overcome. They've seen us create. They've seen us change. I adore these people But I need to explain to you that this group of people, while they're incredible and such a huge part of our lives, they don't compare to the community that is church. They don't compare to the community that is church, because our church community are people like us with one mind and one purpose, like we read in the definition. But it's because of those people that this church even exists. Some of you know this story. Some of you maybe have never heard it. It's because of these people that a fire was lit within us, and God allowed us to move towards becoming Anchor Church. Because church is a community that exists for a greater purpose. Hebrews 10:25 said it this way. I'm going to read it one more time. We can't neglect meeting together. And then it continues on. It says, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. Anchor Church exists because Stancil and I were sitting at a baseball field just right over at Dow Park watching our oldest play. And it felt like it came out of nowhere. But I sat there doing the same thing that we've done over and over for years upon years upon years. And God said, look at these people. And I began to look around. And at this point, we're playing each other, right? It's Deer Park versus Deer Park. So you know everyone there. And I'm looking at these people that we have learned to love, that we have done life with. And God said, how much do you love them? And I got very emotional, and I remember looking over at Stancil and saying to him, this is our church. These are our people. I'm sure he thought, no, hon, we're at a baseball game. What are you about to do? And so I remember getting extremely emotional and overwhelmed, because God said, how much do you love them? So we began the dream. I said, God, whatever it is that you're asking of us, we will do. That was probably the scariest not ask. I guess we did ask God, what are you asking us to do? That would be the scariest ask of our entire lives to date. Because when we said, we'll love them the way that you called us to, in whatever capacity you're asking of us to, was the hardest and biggest change of our entire lives to date. God created Anchor Church in that moment. He placed that dream within us, and he said, this community that you have been a part of, it's time to reach them in a new way. And this is when we reached out to you, and we asked for prayer, and we reached out to others, and we asked for advice, and we reached out to pastors and said, would you partner with us, and would you come alongside of us and help us? Because these people deserve the opportunity to know Jesus like we do. These people deserve to know that the day of his return is drawing near. And what if it's not about us, but it's up to us? God called us to be the hands and feet of Jesus to those around us. When Anchor Church was created, one of the biggest things, it was all over our posters, it was in every conversation and every meeting, we talked about community. How are we going to make a difference in this community? And so I have a list of things that we have been able to do as a community of Anchor Church throughout the last year and a half. We helped those in need after the tornado ripped through our city. We cleaned up debris. We were patching roofs. We were cutting down trees, and we were passing out coffee. We provided food for first responders that worked tirelessly just to get the city back up and running. We passed out. This is one of my favorites, and some of you are going to throw something at me. I'm not going to do it again, okay? But we passed out waters and gas cards in the middle of July. And it was so hot. The day that we chose was so hot. And I thought, this is the perfect day to pass out waters. Well, it was so hot, nobody went out that day. And so we were literally chasing people down in Dow Park to give them a water and invite them to church. We'll pick a better day. But we really were excited about doing something for Jesus in our community. So thank you for chasing people down with me. We passed out gas cards to those that were needing gas. We partnered with the fire department, and we were able to put together food boxes and baskets for those that were in need during the holiday. We gave away Thanksgiving meals. We had to chase some people down for a couple of those turkeys, too. We sponsored countless families over the last couple of years at Christmas time. Some of those that we learned were in need because they had lost their head of household due to COVID. So we were able to be a part of that, and we've provided backpacks for every child that was in need of a backpack at San Jacinto Elementary School. Those are incredible opportunities to be Jesus in our community. But what those things do are show people that we love them. So I then continued this list. We also have spent countless minutes and hours talking with our coworkers. This is all of us, who are maybe facing the hardest times of their lives, and we comforted them by praying with them or sharing scriptures with them. We've spent time in hospitals and by bedside of those who were suffering and needed to know that there was courage. We've sat next to someone at the gym who was hurting and crying because life had become so hard that they didn't know if they could continue on. That was a hard day. We've looked, if you're a teacher in the room, you've looked into the eyes of a child who was hurting and scared because their home life was dark and messy, and you told them that you loved them and you meant it. And you showed up for them consistently when no one else could or would. Maybe a patient that you got to pour into their lives at a desperate time. We, in this community, have prayed for healing for one another, and we've seen God do it. We have believed for financial miracles, and I have watched as people have told us that checks have shown up out of nowhere. I have heard your stories where God gave you a raise or promoted you, and for some of you, where jobs came out of absolutely nowhere. By some of you, I do mean myself. Came out of absolutely nowhere, and God provided in ways that you never knew that He even would. Some of you have seen this community that we call Anchor Church rise up around you and be there for you when it mattered the most. I want to share with you a couple of stories from people within this community about what church has meant, Anchor Church has meant to them. It meant having people or space that I can lean on to grow and to do life with. I always know that there are people who will stand with me, and I don't have to do life alone. They continued on and said, this is hard to put into words. But I love knowing that when life gets hard, there are people I know that I can call on. When I need to be pushed, there are people who will encourage me to get out of my comfort zone. And when I have a win in life, there are people there to celebrate with me. I love it. Here's another one. To me, The church community was about marrying and burying, meaning that they're in it for the highs and the lows, caring about the little and the big things all throughout life. And when I was a child, that meant letting me graduate from missionettes and watching me play my basketball games. And as an adult, getting married and having children and sitting for a whole day with me to let me talk to someone after I had a miscarriage. It's about going to small group or a baby shower when you're exhausted to love on people and show support, because the small things make people feel supported in a big way. Caring about those things in people's lives and what they're doing and what their passions are can change a person's life. So that formation of true friendships within the community is irreplaceable. I love that one. This one says, when I was asked to write what the church community means or what it's meant and how it's impacted my life, so many thoughts and so many memories and emotions have come to mind. However, all of these memories have a few things in common. Number one, love, and number two, genuine people. Some of the most difficult times in my life were impacted by the church community. When I was a young adult in college, hundreds of miles from my family and having a baby out of wedlock in the deep South, at times I felt judged and unwelcomed and chastised by the local community. However, at that point in my life, I attended a very small church in a very small town with some very well-seasoned members that had a ton of experience in life. And I will forever be grateful to those members of the church that I attended. Not only did they check on me regularly, but they made me a part of their family. They cooked for me. They invited me into their homes, and several of them stitched quilts or crocheted blankets for my child that would try and come 2 months earlier than expected. They showed me love. They showed that they cared and that they gave me grace in one of the loneliest times of my life. And then life happened, and I didn't step foot into a church for almost a decade. Not because of a bad experience, and definitely not because I didn't believe in God, but because I let life get the best of me. But when I did go back to church, a lot of life had passed. I was married and had 2 more children, and I certainly was not living for the Lord. But again, in a new church, I was welcomed with open arms, and I was reminded by several members of that new church whose I am. I was reminded that Jesus died for me and all of the reasons that I could think of that I didn't deserve. Again, I was shown love and I was shown grace. And this church would become my home. During that time, I went through the toughest seasons of my life. Overall, I typically tend to be I can do it on my own type of person. But the members of this church have become like family, and they knew that when I was going through a lot, they were going to be consistent, and they were loving, and they did life with me. One more. My anchor church has meant a lot to my family and to myself. It's helped us grow our faith in Jehovah God and in Jesus Christ. We've always been to church, but never felt a connection like we did here. Our community is very loving and caring, and my family and I have felt blessed to have walked in to this beautiful place and these beautiful people that we now call family. The church is a community that every single person deserves to have an opportunity to be a part of. When we're talking about this series called Come Together, it first begins here, within this community called Anchor Church. And I'm incredibly thankful for Anchor Church and each one of you. But listen, I want to see your friends. I want to see your coworkers, and I want to see your family. have the same opportunity to be surrounded by people who not only love Jesus, but believe in the power of community so that they too can experience him the way that you have and the way that I have. This series called Coming Together, I want to challenge you this summer with something. I want to challenge you to bring others to the table. I want you to reach out to people that you do life with that don't have a church home, that don't have a community like this, and let them know there's room for them. There's a place for them. Galatians 6:9 says this, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Let us not become weary in doing good,